Hello, welcome to this book discussion session on our Handbook of Open Universities around the world. I am Sanjay Mishra. I join along with my co-editor, Professor Santosh Panda, in welcoming our guests of today's session. We have three highly experienced scholars on open and distance education in today's session. They have not only contributed extensively to the field of distance education, but we are honored to have them as contributors to our handbook. Professor Alan Tait is widely known in the field of open and distance education and development all over the world, especially in the Commonwealth countries. Professor Alan Tait is Emeritus Professor of Distance Education and Development at the Open University, UK, a Fellow of the Centre for Online and Distance Education, University of London, and Honorary Fellow of the Commonwealth of Learning. These are things to highlight some of his achievements, but those for our viewers, I would like to emphasize that Professor Alan Tait's contributions to distance education is immense, and people like me have learned from his research works and contribution in the past. Welcome, Alan, to this today. Our next guest speaker and author contributor is Inés Gil-Jaurena. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Inés is an associate professor in the Faculty of Education at the Universidad Nacional de Educación y Distancia, or UNED, in Spain since 2005. She received the Eden Senior Fellow Award from Eden Digital Learning Europe in 2023, and she has been a member of the steering committee of the Eden Network of Academics and Professionals since 2020. She has served as editor-in-chief of Open Praxis, the Journal of Open and Distance Education, published by the International Council for Open and Distance Education from 2012 to 2022. Our next guest, Dr. Aras Bozkurt, actually took over the role of chief editor of Open Praxis from Dr. Inés. Dr. Bozkurt is a researcher and faculty member at the Anadolu University in Turkey. He is one of the leading thinkers and researchers in the contemporary open and distance education. Dr. Bozkurt is interested in emerging research paradigms, including social networks analysis, sentiment analysis, and data mining. You can find him all over these days because of his huge contributions. Welcome both Inés and Aras as well to this show. With this brief introduction of our contributors and guests today, I now request Mr. Panda to facilitate the discussion with his initial brief on today's session.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjaya. I join you once again to welcome our excellent, reputed, widely known scholars of open and distance learning, Professor Alan Tait, Professor Inés Gil-Jaurena, Professor Aras Bozkurt. Let me proceed because Alan has been in the helm of affairs even as Vice Chancellor of the Open University, heading the School of Education and member of EDN, European Distance Education Network, ICDE, And he wrote a piece, a very interesting piece in the AAOU journal published by the Emerald Group, and which was very interesting. And subsequently by Aerodel, and even in Open Praxis, Alan has also published. So therefore, I start with Alan for his initial remarks that what with your experiences and analysis, and Alan is a critical practitioner of open and distance learning. So from that point of view, let me ask Alan to briefly explain your point of view. What did you say that what did you mean when you said that Open University's uncertain future? Alan.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to other colleagues who are here. My congratulations, first of all, to the editors who have brought together this very impressive volume. It's comprehensive in its scope. And to ask a critical question to begin with, I think it's an enormously important volume. Will it be a memorial to an educational innovation of the past, or will it be a springboard for further innovation in higher education for the future? That's the core of my question. So my chapter, which you've been kind enough to refer to, is not a case study of a particular institution, but it offers reflections on the current status and the possible futures of 100 or so open universities around the world. And the chapter proposes that the essential distinguishing feature of open universities from 1970 onwards was innovation. Innovation around two core poles: expanding who can study in the university, and secondly, how those people can be taught and supported. The first of those, open universities have radically changed who it is thought is appropriate to participate in higher education. And those groups who have been excluded in the past have varied, of course, according to country and context. But broadly speaking, they have included people of lower socioeconomic status, women, rural populations, minority ethnic populations, the disabled, and occupational groups such as the police and the military, and so on. There will be others. But for the second, the inclusion of non-traditional audiences studying, for the most part in their homes, has of necessity demanded innovation in how they can be taught. Not only because they have to be taught at a distance, but because they have to be supported both pedagogically and practically. And my chapter goes on to observe that as the massification of higher education has taken place over the last 50 years, the innovation pioneered by open universities has become shared with the higher education sector at large in many, many countries. So the open universities no longer have any monopoly on new audiences, or indeed on technology and innovation in learning and teaching. This observation, in my view, I suggest for discussion, of course, presents a strategic threat to the future of open universities. And indeed, we have, over the last decade or so, seen a number of those open universities lose student numbers, or even, in one case I can think of, change identity and drop the title Open University altogether. So my conclusion is that open universities, if they are to thrive in a very different landscape from that in which they were created, have to renew imaginative innovation. Now, innovation can be divided, very simply speaking, into two types. Firstly, new ideas about giving people what they want. But secondly, and more importantly, more imaginatively, providing what people do not even know they wanted. And this, of course, was the case with the invention of open universities. There was no market research done to say, did people want an open university? It was an imaginative leap into the dark, and people responded even though they didn't know they wanted it. So my chapter concludes with the question, why do we still need open universities? My last point is that the core of renewed innovation is not likely to lie in what was innovation in the past. That is, opportunity for the excluded, or change in how learning and teaching can be provided. Of course, those remain of importance for the future. But I suggest open universities set about curriculum innovation, based not on academic principle, but on socio-economic insight, In particular, I suggest about occupational groups who did not, but now do need higher education at scale and across the nation. To take my own context, the UK, this has been done with considerable success over the years, for example, with telecoms engineers, with preschool or nursery workers, with teaching assistants, with healthcare assistants, with sports coaches, just to take some examples. These are all large occupational groups who traditionally have not needed higher education qualifications, who have been ignored by traditional universities, but who now can be seen to have such a need, even if they and government do not yet realize it. This sort of work has been done, but new groups in different countries need to be identified and collaborated with. They need to have an offer they are suddenly excited by. And open universities can, in this way, I suggest, carry out acts of imagination to renew their innovative role in their societies. So that, Santosh, is my contribution to begin with.
Thank you, Alan, for this very interesting articulation of the future of open universities. We will come back to this when time permits. You talked about change identity, talked about innovation and innovation for the future. So the innovation that is going on, they have to go beyond the innovation of curriculum, but then quite a few other things. We'll come back to this after the initial remarks by Inés and Aras. So I said to Professor Inés, also to talk about Universidad Nacional de Educación a Distancia, UNED, if I spelled it correctly. So it is Spanish, so difficult for us. So we were spelling our name a bit differently, but then we realized that it is Inés. So Inés, your experience, you are an European expert in open and distance learning and known internationally. You have significantly contributed to research and while editing the Journal of Open Praxis, also contributing to the European networks, the European research, and also internationally. So given the experience that you have and vis-a-vis UNED, and also the other open universities in Spain, how do you visualize that? What could be the future business model of the open university system in Europe and vis-a-vis other parts of the world, more particularly in Europe and certainly in Spain? Inés.
Well, thank you, Professor Panda, and well, thank you all. It's my pleasure to join you in this discussion and to listen to Alan. We have lost him, I think, but well, one of the things I wanted to highlight about the book is precisely his chapter. Alan, I was talking about you. Well, I may start with this introduction about the situation in Spain, and then I'd like to highlight some ideas from the book in general, and then about the chapter I wrote with some colleagues from UNED. Well, in Europe, currently there is an opportunity window, I would say, open for us, and it's the Open EU Alliance of Universities. You may be familiar with that. It's an alliance of universities, a consortium of universities funded by the European Union, and this one is focused on and composed by open universities. And also there are different associated partners who are related to or interested in digital education or in promoting open education. And this is, I think, an opportunity to confront the different challenges we face. And I don't have many solutions, but I have many concerns with the future. And I think the book you have edited, it has a very interesting introductory section where we can see the evolution history about open education, but also look at the future. So I think it has very interesting insights about that. And coming back to the Open EU and to the situation in Spain, this Open EU Alliance of Universities is coordinated by Spanish universities. It's the Open University of Catalonia, And there is a book chapter about this university also in the book. And we are UNED, my university, Universidad Nacional de Educación a Distancia, and in English it would be National Distance Education University. We are also partners in that alliance, and we are the largest university in all the consortium of OpenEU, where there are other universities. It's the Open University UK as an associate partner, where Alan Tait has worked for a long time. The Fern University in Germany, Open University of Greece in Cyprus, etc. And I think this is an interesting opportunity. And the situation in Spain is that my university, UNED, is the oldest open or distance education university in the country, and is the only public one. So we keep the public status, and we are national. We depend on the Ministry of Education or of universities at this moment, and we have had since the beginning a clear social function to reach all these students that Alan Tait was mentioning also, all the diverse population in the country, and especially specific group of students that have had traditional difficulties to reach higher education. So I think the contribution of my university to democratic access to education, to higher education in particular, has been very relevant through history, and still it is. And there are other, more so-called, not distance, but online universities in Spain. In the last years, there have been different private initiatives and universities being created in the country, but we are still the only public distance education university. And then, coming to the general overview of the book, well, I really think it's a very comprehensive book, including many. Well, you can spend a lot of time reading all the details because it has really a lot of information, and I would say it has a great importance for maybe researchers in history of education or comparative studies, because the fact that all the individual chapters about universities have a similar structure is very helpful. Not really to compare, because the contexts are sometimes very different, but to have a clear photo of each university, also the history, the evolution, the current situation, and also the challenges that each university identifies. And then the openness analysis framework, that was a real challenge to put the numbers and to some extent assess ourselves through against those criteria. I think it's very interesting, but just an alert to the readers that the analysis of each university, the analysis are not comparable, because maybe where we had put a 4 for assessment, I think we had a 4 because our assessment is quite fixed. Other universities have put a different figure, but still the framework, I think it's very helpful, and it's a pity that not all the institutions follow the framework and present the table, but for us it was interesting to feel that. And then, well, I would like to highlight also about my university that I collaborated with 2 other very experienced professors in my university, who have a long teaching experience at UNED, but also management experience. So it was a pleasure to collaborate with Ángeles Sánchez, Elvira, and Miguel Santamaría as co-authors of the chapter about UNED. And maybe looking more to the future, we are still very committed with the social function, with inclusion, but also with adapting to the new times and in incorporating technology and trying to serve our students in the best possible way. And in that sense, currently we are involved in also promoting micro-credentials as a new way of a new educational offer that was not covered before, because we have our regular undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral studies, also lifelong learning programs, but micro-credentials are quite new. In Europe, there is a big promotion of micro-credentials, and also in my university at this moment. And I think I can leave it right here. Just one last thing is that the chapter about UNED, about the UNED Spain, there is another UNED in Costa Rica, and there is another chapter about that university. We share the acronym, but the chapter about UNED Spain is in open access, so any reader can download it from the website. And I will leave it here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Inés. We also thank your co-authors. Let me get to Aras, Professor Aras Bozkurt. Aras, in fact, Aras and the colleagues, his own colleagues and our old friend Olaf, they have jointly contributed pressing the historical legacy vis-a-vis a very complex analysis, which they do apply to other analytical chapters, which is probably the longest chapter so far in the book. And vis-a-vis that, and also Aras has contributed on the Anadolu University, which itself is probably the largest dual-mode university in the world. And when Sir John Daniel wrote about mega universities book, and he particularly mentioned Anadolu, he included dual mode also in the mega universities. So Anadolu was the largest dual mode mega university in the book. Besides the Chinese and the Indian systems, obviously they are larger. So Aras, your initial remarks on and the historical development while working on that, what future you look at, what developments they pass through, and how do you visualize the OU system in the future, and it's their relationship with the dual mode university, because the Anadolu experience would be best experience to explain how dual mode could also contribute, survive, and in spite of threats from the dual mode, open universities are still continuing. But will they continue in the future? What will be their relationship in the future? Aras, I'll leave to.
Okay, perhaps, while I was explaining my chapter, at the end of the chapter, already there is a section for future implications or future predictions. I can integrate to that section. But before that, there were two chapters, but one of the chapter, which is entitled as Tracing the Legacy of Open Universities. This is co-authored by Frank Loglo, Berin Jeffa, Engin Kurşun, John Bay, and Olaf Zawadzki Richter. So I would like to thank them, because without them, I could not write that, because it was a massive chapter and took a lot of effort. In the first chapter, indeed, we traced around more than half a century in the history, and there are around 6 eras, and we have realized that from a bold idea in the 1960s to a global necessity today, the story of open universities is one of the constant evolution and transformation. And by looking at to these 6 distinct era, we can understand its journey. The first era can be named as the beginning, and it covers 1969 and 1979. In the beginning, the main goal in this era, the main goal was simply to establish these new kinds of universities, because during those time, talking about open universities or open education, it was kind of a crazy thing. It was kind of an unusual thing. And the pioneers focused on the fundamentals like designing new curriculums, figuring out the best teaching methods, and proving that this model was cost effective. It was a radical new way of thinking about lifelong learning for all. In the second era, it can briefly named as building the foundation, and this era covered 1980 and 1989. In the 1980s, as more open universities were established, the focus shifted to improving how they thought, researched, explored the pedagogy of openness, and began using educational technology like television broadcast to enhance the student learning experience from at a distance. In the third era, it can be briefly called as going global, and this period, this era covers 1980 and 1999. Sorry, 1990 and 1999. In the 1990s, the globalization and the dawn of the internet brought a lot of opportunities for open universities. Suddenly, we have seen that open learning could cross borders. However, this era also brought the first major concerns about the digital divide. I mean, the gap between people who had access to technology and those who did not. In the fourth era, we were talking about the online ecosystems. In this period, education moved online in a big way with the rise of e-learning. With this shift, there were new challenges. The most important questions become like, how do we support our students from afar? How do we reduce dropout rates? And how can we guarantee a high quality education online? These were the questions mostly discussed during this era. The fifth era is the rise of openness, and this era covers 2010 and 2019. This decade saw the open movement to really explode. This was the era of open educational resources, or OER, and massive open online courses, which is better known as MOOCs. Technology also became smarter, that is allowing for more personalized, adaptive learning that could be tailored to individual student needs. In the final era covered in this chapter, we focused on crisis and transformation, and this term doesn't cover a decade, but covers 5 years from 2020 to 2024. The most recent era was defined by the COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, it was really a global event. I mean, everybody is affected by the pandemic, and which forced education worldwide into a mode of emergency remote teaching and learning. Perhaps during that time, the whole globe, the whole world knew about open universities, online learning, distance education, and open education. Open universities showed their strength and resilience, but the crisis also highlighted the deep inequalities in access to technology and resources. Already we highlighted that with the emergence of the internet and computers, we were we had already started talking about a digital divide, and now we are in a period of rapid digital transformation with technologies like AI. And indeed, for the last a few years, we are only talking about AI and AI-powered technologies. So if I sum up from a revolutionary idea to a global standard, the journey of open universities has been remarkable. We documented this journey with a lot of witnesses, and we have seen that open universities have constantly adapted to new technologies and global changes. The core mission has always been the same: to make education more accessible, flexible, and equitable. So when it comes to your question regarding the future of open universities, I think indeed not only Anadolu University, by the way, is a dual mode university. I will also already talk about that, and I see that being a dual mode university has a lot of advantages. And if I look at the past of the open universities, rather than operating in one single area, if you operate, more than one area, you always has advantages. And from the perspective of open universities and open education, I can say that, what I see is convergence of face-to-face education and open education. So probably in the future, lifelong learners will not be isolated learners in one educational mode. Indeed, they will zigzag between different modes of education, or if they are attending a conventional face-to-face education, they will also support their learning process through open education or services provided by open universities. So the future I see is the convergence of different educational modalities and the convergence of delivery of educational system. This means in the future, probably we will frequently talk about hybrid modes of education, which includes open education, which is facilitated by open universities, or in some cases face-to-face education, as in the case of blended learning or flipped learning, or something in between like online education, which is also which also provide attending face-to-face courses, or which can provide opportunity to socialize in on-site campus. So the future is probably will be more sophisticated, more complicated, but it will most likely be a hybrid future in terms of open education and face-to-face education. In the second chapter, indeed, I talk about Anadolu University. Anadolu University, it is not just a university. It is, we call it as a giga university, not a mega one, because having 1 million students means a lot, and it is probably more than a mega university. And in that chapter, we explored its history, its impact, and the the things that made Anadolu University a leader in open education in Turkey, perhaps across Europe. Anadolu University indeed was established in 1958, but its journey in open education began in 1982. After years of war at the beginning of the 20th century, Turkey needed to rebuild its education population because most of the educated people were lost during the wartime. So the university's open education system was created to meet this massive demand for higher education. The idea was to create a university that was open and accessible to everyone, no matter where they lived. So this idea inspired the not foundation of Anadolu University, but open education faculty in Anadolu University. And in 1982, the growth of Anadolu University has been truly remarkable. It started with around 30,000 students in 1982, and within 3 years, it had over more than 1,000 students, 100,000 students, and was called a mega university. By 2008, it crossed the 1 million student mark, becoming a giga university. And by 2025, now we are serving around 1 million students each year. And we have kind of the largest dual mode university in Europe, perhaps all around the world. But I am very sure that open education faculty is the largest one all around Europe with its student population. But the story of Anadolu University isn't just about numbers. It is also about people and inclusion. One of the most significant impacts has been on gender equality. In 1982, only 20% of the students were women, but by 2022, that number jumped to around 50%, creating a near perfect balance in Turkish higher ecosystem. The university also attracts students from all age groups. We have students, their age generally range from 18 years to 88 years. That means, we reach nearly all generations living in Turkey. This is kind of a remarkable privilege. I am saying that as the Dean of Open Education Faculty. We also serve around 25,000 learners with special needs from different special needs areas, and 5,000 students in prisons. This is also an interesting fact. While we are talking about flexibility, we are not only talking about the flexibility in social life, but a flexibility to reach learning opportunities, even if you are stuck in a prison, even if you are not really flexible, in the life. So how does it all work? Anadolu University is a dual mode university, campus and at a distance. For distance learners, the system is designed to be self-paced and flexible. Students access a wide variety of materials through the university's online platform, which is called Anadolu eCampus. This is a learning management system that we developed based on the learning needs we've witnessed. I mean, it is also shaped by local and cultural needs of our learner population. And we provide a wide range of learning materials. Each course has around 16 different types of learning materials, from PDF to interactive books to audio books to different type of videos. Anadolu University impact indeed goes beyond Turkey. It has a global presence in around 50 countries, but most of our student population are diaspora, I mean Turkish people living across the globe. But following this year, we are completely a global campus because we have some programs in English, and now anybody from the globe can enroll to these programs if they have some basic English to attend the courses. And indeed, we also went crazy. Most of our programs are in Turkish, but if you have some Turkish, but if you are willing to learn Turkish, this year we established a new program. It is about Turkish language and culture, and there is a prep student for learning Turkish. So you can learn Turkish, and you can also select one of the program at Anadolu University. So it's not only knowing English. I mean, if you are willing to Turkish, you can also enroll any program. To brief, in all, Anadolu University is more than just a giga university. It is a powerful example of how open and distance learning can democratize higher education. It is a living example of this idea and being witnessed by Turkish citizens, and will be witnessed by global citizens, hopefully in the near future. Anadolu University has promoted, as we see from the figures, social justice and gender equality, and became a leader in using technology for education in Turkey. So indeed, it's a young university, but an ambitious one, and we are really dedicated to support lifelong learners, not only in Turkey, but all around the world.
Thank you, Aras, for this very extensive, very detailed, but very interesting presentation. We have, in fact, less time. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Panda. I think it has been great listening to three of our guests. And I think there is the common thing that was gelling together, starting with Prof. Alan's, is the democratization and social justice. And that was going through in all the three presentations on the book. And of course, that is the whole notion of the Handbook of Open Universities, to illustrate how open universities have contributed to democratization of education, social justice, and so forth, and how this is going to be the legacy will continue in future. I think a lot of things have been talked about the future thing, but because we have three illustrated guests who have extensive contribution to research in the field, I think I'm going to ask one question from the perspective of research. for 3 of them to respond as one question. And particularly Aras has done this extensive research on open universities. But if you look at the kind of research that is getting published, there is a group of people who are questioning about the quality of research. And there is a saying called the research we have is not the research we need. In that specific context, from your experience, what are your recommendations or suggestions for emerging scholars in the field of open education, open universities, to take up as research that is needed currently and in future? So I'll start with Alan and then Inés and Aras. Alan, over to you.
That's a very difficult question, Sanjaya. The big questions, I think, remain on the table. And I would say to any researcher currently working in the field, look at these institutions from the outside. Open universities are strong and powerful universities. They have strong internal cultures. But those cultures can sometimes blind us, I include myself in this, blind us to the really difficult questions. For example, we publish a lot about recruitment numbers. We publish much less about the numbers of successful students. We believe our reputation is very high, but for many people in many countries, the reputation of open universities is not so high. So I would say to any researcher, look at our institutions from the outside and ask the critical, difficult questions. Don't be afraid to do so.
Thank you, Alan. Inés?
Yeah, well, I agree with Alan, of course. And for me, I think it's very important, and it's something that I valued when I was the editor for Open Praxis, is to have a strong theoretical or conceptual framework. So not just jump into the research question directly, but to build upon existing research and theories, and especially in educational theory. I think that's important because people who do research in open and distance education come from different fields. So sometimes that educational or pedagogical basis is not so evident. So I think that's important. And then to have also a sound methodology. Regardless it is quantitative or qualitative, I am a big fan of qualitative research and to study the phenomenon deeply. So to be concrete and clear with the methodology, and then to think always about the practical implications of the research. So also I'm a big fan of practice-based research. And one thing that I value of my university is that at UNED there is a big promotion of innovation, that Alan also mentioned, innovation and research about the aspects we innovate about. As teachers, we are encouraged to, and we get some small funding for doing innovation in our courses or in our programs or in our degrees. And to do research, to analyze if they work, if they don't work, for whom they work. And also another thing is that in this field, open and distance education is a really big field. So many things can be studied or researched. So I encourage everybody to considering, well, the contextualization of the studies and theoretical basis and sound methodology, but to encourage them to do research. And there are many reputed journals to publish in. And we mentioned Open Praxis, of course, published by ICDE, but there is also the Eden Journal, EuroDL, also, well, journals more linked to universities. My university hosts the Ibero-American Journal for Distance Education, which belongs to ISAT, which is another international organization, this time for Spanish-speaking open universities. So there are many journals specific about this field. So we have to read a lot and then also contribute to them.
Excellent. Thank you. Aras, your quick take on what is the research that we need today?
All right. Already Alan and Inés already addressed the most significant issues, but I can say especially for the early career researchers, I can say that don't be a methodological fetish. What I see, people are really obsessed with the methodology. Some of the people strongly argue quantitative or some other qualitative. So my perspective is that let your research questions guide you to choose the best methodological part. Because of the publish or perish culture, I see that some people especially focus on only quantitative research, or they are trying to dress a qualitative research question with a quantitative dress, and that means, losing the war at the beginning. So just allow your research questions to guide you in that journey. And the other thing would be probably, I would say, what I see is everybody is repeating itself or repeating the other research or saying the same thing. Time is changing. The field is really more competitive. And what I believe that the future will be written not by those repeating the same things, but saying the new things. So that means being critical is really important. And as Alan already said, asking the questions without afraid of anything and trying to find the right answers, it's really important. If you do that already, you will do the research we all need. This is what I think.
Thank you, Aras. Prof. Panda, you have also in the field of editing several journals, and I think I would also ask you the same question to reflect quickly before we summarize.
Yeah, we have very less time, but this is a very interesting question. I think Alan has raised a very significant issue that we are not celebrating our innovations. We are doing research. As I put Aras into that bracket, I must say that we are just repeating. I see a lot of repeat on the same theme. If AI has come, everybody is jumping into AI and forgetting a whole lot of things. Alan is, I think if I read extensively, Alan has been talking about critically student as a voice. Have we resolved that issue even today? That with our Open University network, learner support, this is a very significant area, whether it's AI or technology or not technology or whatever. So have we resolved that? Because after all, student is the center of. I recall long back, I think Dr. Sanjay, you were part of that, Indian Journal of Open Learning. Our friend Terry Evans from Australia, he wrote a piece and said that if open universities have to be seen as universities, they have to do research. So that was a very fundamental question because research was not happening in open universities. Aras belonging to dual mode significantly contributing, and he talked about hybrid learning. I think the future, and our book on blended learning is out from Springer, so some of the best case studies from the world. I think the future is how best we can blend technology, delivery strategies, our curriculum design, assessment, a lot of access, equity, employability issues. These are the major concerns because employability, how this is built into the system and how employment is actually happening for the students, actually either self-entrepreneurs or to join a job or vocational education and training. So these are the issues I think we are, my only concern to conclude is, as I find from all the publications, including Eurodel, which Alan was editing, Open Praxis, Eurodel, Journal of Learning for Development, and quite a few others, which Routledge and others are publishing. I think we are becoming more technology oriented. We are living the major issues and concerns which really concern the educational design, development, and delivery, rather than technology per se. I think that is a major serious concern which I'm raising. So we are more technology guided rather than issue guided or thematic guided. So I should stop here. So for you to conclude, Dr. Sanjaya, we have.
Thank you, Professor Panda. I think
Aras would like to say a few things, hopefully.
Please,
So,
Aras,
if
go ahead.
Yeah, concluding words, I want to say something. You know, during my PhD, I was reading this kind of books, especially the book of Sir John Daniel, and I was saying one day I have to edit or write kind of something like that. And all in a sudden, I saw your invitation in my email box. And that's why, you know, by contributing with 2 chapters, it was kind of realizing my dream that I dreamed years ago. So I see this book as a magnum opus book introducing open universities, and it has really updated references. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate your effort.
Thank you, Aras. I think one thing I want to summarize from the point on research that I asked for our viewers of this discussion. For your younger researchers and people in open universities, what is the kind of research that is needed? We do not have a recipe for everyone to follow. But what I listen from all 4 of you is this, that the research need to be based on socioeconomic context of your institution. You need to look at your problem and practice and focus on design and innovation of your work. And while doing so, look at your problem. Don't focus more on methodology, but your research questions should drive the methodology that you will use. And above all, avoid repetition of the work and don't go by the flow of technology-driven approach. Everybody is writing about technology, so I should be writing about technology. Beyond that, look into the issues and challenges of your organization and open and distance learning. And that is probably the generic thing I gathered from 4 of you that you highlighted on the on research that we need in open universities as such. But today's session was to focus on open universities in Europe. We were grateful to our contributing authors to our Handbook of Open Universities around the world. I thank each one of you for joining us today in sharing your thoughts, your contribution to the book, how it extends the knowledge and understanding in the field, and contributes to future deliberation on open universities around the world. I am sure our audience will take time to grasp the understanding that you have shared, and also look at the book. And at least we know that the chapter from Inés is available in open access for download. And
That's right. Yeah.
Initial chapters are also available on Google Books for those who are not able to grab a book. I would suggest recommend the book to your library to get a copy of the book. With that, if you have been able to reach to this stage of the video, and if you like it, please click the like button and share the video within your networks. Once again, I would like to thank all our viewers and especially our guests for joining us today. A profuse thanks from me and Professor Santosh Panda for joining us in today's discussion on Handbook of Open Universities around the world. Thank you very much.